Mr. Money or Mr. Right.
But I think
Edward, you reckon it's good, but a lot of the girls and women protest against the implementation of this law.
But I think it's two different things, right? No matter what the law says, always in reality, people want to marry a rich person. Not necessarily women marry a rich man. It can be men marry a rich lady, right? It could be the same.
It could be the other way around.
But I think it's not only about the law says, right? I think it's whole society, right? It's a value of people. But when we look at marriage law, we also need to look at what's the purpose of marriage law. Is it just to protect property, or is it also to protect marriage, right? To promote marriage, right? We need to think more about it rather than just the ownership of property, rather than girl or boy thing.
Well, what's the counter argument, Edward?
Certainly, marriage is more a business when you boil it all down, and one has to look at it from a situation of social stability, family stability, and a certain interpretation and a certain ease. If you know the rules and regulations are going to be considered a certain way, at least if you know that knowingly going into the marriage, then both parties agreed. So you're making a contract. It's a little bit like a business deal, but you're making a contract and you both understand it very clearly. And I think that the new interpretation, I think that the controversy is about property, and the property is that real estate prices here is no secret, continue to go up, and it's extremely expensive. What's different in this country certainly than the United States is that, like it was said in the pre-piece, was that men have to buy or should buy a real estate before they get married. And then the question is, well, where does that leave women? But I think that the law speaks very well for how it's good for women as well.
Here is a very controversial point regarding Edward's analysis about the nature of having the marriage. He says basically that it boils down to a business instead of love, instead of social responsibility that having a family. What having a family means.
Well, I think we need to look at the reality, of China. China is not the U.S., right? And you cannot just take Beijing or Shanghai as a whole China, right? We need to look at the majority of China. We need to look at the traditional part. I think, of course, I totally agree that marriage should be based on the love. But in reality, like in the countryside where we have the most population, right, where men are supposed to buy the property, is kind of traditional, and women contribute a lot to the housewife, to the housework, to the family in the other aspects. However, according to the current draft, if they got divorced, women end up in nothing, right? And normally women end up with the small children, and how they can protect themselves. They're more vulnerable.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. The women are supposed to, and the wives are supposed to take care of the children. If the marriage ends in a divorce, they have nothing in return.
Well, that's not exactly correct. I mean, they do have something in return. I mean, the issue goes like this. The premarital property, if it's bought ahead of time before the marriage and it's registered in the man's name, then the property is returned to the man. If it's registered in both spouses' names, and this is what we want to get across to the people in the countryside, is that that's probably a better alternative for most people, then it would be divided up equally. But
that's why a lot of men say, wow, this is good, right? When I buy the property, I will buy before I get married, and I will just register under my own name.
Right, but here's the thing. The women, though, will still get the money back in a contractual situation on the money that they put into the mortgage, contrary to what other people think. They also could ask for money back for certain kinds of services. I'm not saying they're going to get it, but that this is a contractual situation.
But you just mentioned about the price of the real estate, right? If women just get the compensation in terms of money back, right? The old value of the property goes back to men. It's not equal, it's not fair, it's not reasonable.
That's real if the real estate prices continue to go up. I mean, in our country, in the United States, we thought that the prices would never go down. If the prices go down, and the RMB, by the way, is going up, so the currency.
But why the law cannot link with the value of the property, right? That's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Why is only compensation in terms of money, right? Not in terms of the ownership, right?
Then the residence got to be registered under the name of both the wife and the husband. You are watching Dialogue with Luca Liu and Edward Lehman. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Generally speaking, I agree this is a very fair modification.